Heyman's words made Sabrina's expression change to that of shock. What was a black card? This could be said to be a VVIP level card. Those who held this type of card were all super rich. This was a big bank in the country. In other words, the threshold for a person to receive a card here was higher than in other small banks. Below the black card, there was a bronze card, silver card and gold card. Bronze for $1 million, silver for $50 million and gold for $100 million. In other words, the black card was a representation of wealth. But, after thinking things through, she thought that it was only right for Jack to receive this card. After all, his current balance was over $1 billion, not to talk about the fixed assets that he had on him. What privileges comes with this type of card? Jack asked. It was not that he was ignorant, it was just that being in the rich Alfonso family had limited his contact with the rich. Till now, although he'd heard of this type of card, he didn't know that much about it. Furthermore, most of the things that he heard were rumors that tend to be exaggerated. Heyman looked at Jack's calm expression and was impressed. Then, he thought to himself, it seems that he's used to handling this size of money. Now that he's our client, I'm sure that we can benefit. This card is only given to those that have a $500 million to $1 billion deposit with our bank. It is a credit card. In other words, once you're given this card, it's like you have $2 billion on you. It's just that the billion that you've deposited will remain in the bank. Heyman began explaining about the black card. At this time, Jack caught something and couldn't help but ask, if the black card is for those that have a deposit of $500 million to $1 billion, does that mean that there are higher level cards? Yes, Mr. Jack. There's a black gold card. This is a card for those that have a deposit of $10 billion to $49 billion. There's a diamond card. This one is for those that have $50 billion to $100 billion in their accounts. Then, there's a platinum card for those that have over $100 billion in their accounts. Of course, our bank is of a higher level than the others in the country. So, our black card is that for account holders with at least $500 million. But, if you go to other banks, it starts at $100 million. Heyman explained. Jack and Sabrina nodded. Back to the privileges, with the card in your hand, you can spend $1 billion from it. But, once you start going above $1 billion, or in other words, your current deposit, it will be an overdraft. So, it can be considered that you're taking a loan. But, the loan will have to be repaid within the stated time with zero interest. Furthermore, as long as your money is saved with our bank, it will be earning interest as time goes. As for your current amount that you've deposited, we can give you a 3% annual interest. Jack nodded after hearing this. What caught his attention was the 3% annual interest in his deposit. He thought of it and asked, System, does the interest count as income? Can it be multiplied? Correct. Saving hard-earned money can be said to be working. After all, it's like you're investing on the bank as they will be using your money to give loans and whatever. In that way, it's like they're helping you with work. So, what you earn is considered as income by the system. But, you have to know that, if you just save the money and stay idle, that money will not be multiplied. In other words, this system is to encourage hard working. If you laze around, then, you'll be going against the system's purpose. As a result, it won't multiply anything if you're idle. Jack sighed within his head. This system and its logic again. Anyway, it wasn't like he could stay idle. He'll be working hard to earn more. Apart from that, you'll be able to carry out large transactions as long as they don't exceed the $5 billion threshold. In other words, the transactions can be completed without inconveniencing you to come to the bank. Heyman continued, pulling Jack's mind from the system. Then, there's a VIP service. Your accounts won't be frozen without notice. Again, you can easily transfer the money at any moment. Heyman went on to talk about several things like loans and whatever. The more he spoke, the more Sabrina's mouth gaped. She then thought to herself, the rich surely have privileges. In between somewhere, Ivy brought tea. Of course, she brought both coffee and tea, but Jack chose tea, the same as Sabrina. After all, it was almost noon. Who drank coffee in the afternoon? Well, there were some that did that, but Jack didn't like that. After about an hour, Jack and Sabrina walked out of the office together with Heyman, who had come to send them off. After all, Jack was a big client. For him, a branch manager, to be able to make an acquaintance with him was an honor. Mr. Jack, you're welcome to visit anytime. It'll be my honor to help you if there's anything that you need, within my capacity of course. Heyman stated with a smile. Of course, Mr. Heyman. Jack replied with a faint smile on his lips. Though, Heyman didn't mind that Jack wasn't that enthusiastic as he'd already seen the way that Jack behaved. But you should be prepared to do a few more upgrades, Jack stated as he and Sabrina entered the elevator. After which, the doors closed, leaving the confused Heyman on the 7th floor together with his secretary. After a few seconds, the confusion on his face faded away and was replaced by a broad smile. He was a smart person and immediately understood what Jack meant. After getting out of the bank, Jack drove in the Bentley Continental GT as they headed towards the business overlord building. Jack decided to check it out first. Although he trusted Sabrina, but what he'd experienced back at the Prince and Princess Palace was something that made him want to make sure that everything was okay before paying. After all, a Eurocopter on top of a garage with no means of reaching it, Jack wanted to make sure that nothing like that happened as the system seemed not to care about where to pack things. No, it never asked where he wanted them to be packed, apart from the Bugatti Veyron of course. Along the way, Jack thought of the Prince and Princess Palace. He then turned his attention to the still dazed Sabrina and asked, "Is there a helipad in the Prince and Princess Palace?" Huh? Sabrina, who had yet to take in what had happened in the bank, was surprised by Jack's question. But after a moment, she regained her composure and answered, "And no, I don't think I've seen it before. Why are you asking? Do you want to buy a helicopter?" Sabrina's answer was within Jack's expectations. Although it was only in the lower probability, he still thought that Sabrina had forgotten about it. But looking at her clueless expression, Jack felt that it was a little strange. After a moment of silence, Jack spoke, "Not at this moment. But, I just wanted to know. After all, that place is big. Then, do you know about the history of that palace?" Sabrina thought for a moment and replied, "According to what I know, there was a person that used to live here in Incoed City. He had a son who had a successful career. In the end, this son of his wanted to build a smart home for him in secret to surprise him on his birthday. But before the construction reached in the middle, the old man found about it. So, now that it was no longer a surprise, the son asked his father if he wanted the smart home. In the end, the old man said that a city wasn't a good place for him to relax in his old age, so he told his son to build it in another piece of land that he'd bought. The son wanted to demolish the foundation that he'd already built. In the end, the old man stopped him. He had been staying in Incoed City for long and he was the reason for a big part of its development. So, he decided that the foundation would be left, but in the end, normal luxurious mansions were to be built there. As of that time, the advanced garage had already been finished, and after the construction was done, the old man decided that the house was going to be sold at a price of $38 million. This price, for a mansion, although the mansion was quite luxurious, it was high for the residents of the city. After all, the mansion had no commercial value as the old man prohibited that the palace couldn't be sold after being bought for a profit. The old man's aim of setting such a low price for such luxurious mansions, although it was a loss, was to attract another person to Incoed City, one that could help develop Incoed in his place. Sabrina finished her narration at this point. Then, she looked at Jack, who was still processing what he'd heard, and said with a beautiful smile, "And it seems that the old man's wish has been fulfilled by your presence, Mr. Jack." In response, Jack said, "I guess so. But he didn't talk about the garage and the helipad as he'd found the reason as to why they were more advanced." Not long after that, they arrived closer to the center of the city. Even from a distance, Jack could clearly see the tallest building. He'd seen it in his previous trips in the heart of the city, but he'd paid no attention to it. After all, he'd seen taller buildings in Crystal City. Vroom! The Bentley Continental GT sped up before entering the underground parking of the building. Immediately after, Jack and Sabrina alighted from the car. A security guard came a few seconds later. He knew Sabrina as he was there when the building was being handed over to her after the developer was done. He was the current captain of the current team that was on the day shift. "Greetings, Mrs. Sabrina." After a bow, he greeted her before greeting Jack. But it was obvious that he was treating Sabrina with more respect than he did with Jack. Nobody could blame him. Jack was just 19 years old and his clothes were nothing flashy. So, the captain thought that Sabrina had come to inspect the building while at the same time bringing this youth to broaden his horizon. Jack, on the other hand, didn't mind at all. It wasn't like being feared or being revered would give him more money. But what he noticed was that it seemed that Homescope Properties Limited had a cooperation with Good Vision Security Limited. Or maybe he was just overthinking things, as Good Vision Security Limited was amongst the best security companies present in the country and the most reputable one in Incoed. As a landmark building of Incoed City, it had to receive the best security. "Captain Tim, this is Mr. Jack. Here's here to check out the building, he's going to buy it. Mr. Jack, this is Tim, the captain of the guards of the day shift. Sabrina smiled as she introduced the two. Sabrina's words immediately made Tim flustered. After all, he'd been superficial with Jack not long ago. Who knew that this was going to be the new employer of his? So, he immediately gave a deep bow to Jack and said, Mr. Jack, I'm sorry for my ignorance right now. Tim knew very well that a person that could purchase a floor of the building was of a higher status than Sabrina. For him to treat Sabrina more respectfully than the other party, it was the same as stepping on the other person's reputation. Don't mind, Jack said before turning to Sabrina, let's check the building out. Okay, Sabrina replied before looking at Tim, we're going to check it out, you can come with us. Tim nodded before the trio took the elevator that was present in the underground parking lot and headed to the first floor. Jack looked around and was impressed by the level of the building. The first floor was well designed and the layout wasn't messy. This was an office building. So, the whole first floor was a closed office layout. The offices were as big as 300 square meters. Then, there was one office that overlooked the northern part of the city. From there, although one couldn't see clearly due to the other buildings, at least, one could see the night lights. After going to the second floor and the third, Jack found that the layout was different from the other. But, one thing remained the same. It was that, the lobby area was the same size and same design. The only difference would be the colors and decorations. After seeing that everything was good in the first 5 floors, Jack decided to go to the 15th floor. He knew all too well that, going to all the floors would surely tire them out. After all, each floor spanned for thousands of meters. Just like that, Jack and the duo finally arrived on the topmost floor. Of course, they had used the elevator, that according to Sabrina had access to all floors. Well, even Jack could see that from the numbers that were written on the buttons. The 30th floor was completely different. The eastern and western sides of the horizon could be seen clearly. The desk and seat of the big boss was stationed in the eastern side, facing the west. According to what anybody could see about the layout here was that, the one using this office could bath in the morning sun and enjoy the setting sun in the evening. Well, the waiting area was in the western part of the floor. As for the northern side of the office, there was the meeting hall. Jack looked at it and found that it was quite big and that 150 people could fit in. On the southern part of the floor, there was a living area. Once one entered through the door, he would enter the living room. There were 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and finally, there was a washroom and a bathroom. Things here were quite advanced and the room looked no different from the palace. Jack was satisfied with this setting. After all, if he was at work and got tired, there would be no need for him to drive back home. He could just stay here. After seeing that everything was okay, Jack then paid the $700 million in full, no balance. After that, the group finally decided to leave the building. After all, it was already lunchtime. On this, Jack decided that he was going to treat the duo to a good meal. On reaching the ground floor, Jack found that it was a big open space that was filled with different types of things that could help people relax or entertain them. There was a place where children could play as well. In other words, the ground floor was present for those working to relax or entertainment. Of course, the activities were separated from each other and there was no space for games like soccer or cricket. After getting out of the building via the front door, they found that there was a commotion. It seemed that there was a person that was trying to enter but was being prevented from accessing the building. What do you mean that I cannot enter? We're going to buy this building. So, I have to check it out first. A man said to the 2 guards that were blocking his way. I'm sorry sir. It's not that we don't want you to enter. It's just that you can't enter without the manager of Homescope Properties Limited. After all, she's the one in charge of the building. One of the guards replied. Do you know who I am? I'm Frank Dante. Dante, you got that? If you continue trying to stop me from entering, I'll make sure that you won't get even janitor's job in this city. The man spoke in a deep voice laced with anger and threat. Please sir, don't make things hard for us. We're only guards here. According to the rules, we cannot let you into the building unless you're the owner or you're here with the real estate agency manager. The other guard replied. Although they were scared, they still won't allow him to enter. Now that you know that you're a guard, you should know your place. You're nothing but a dog. If you continue this, Humph, I'm going to make sure that you're going to suffer. Yes sir, I'm sorry but we can't let you in. What do you mean? Isn't Mrs. Sabrina inside here? I was told that she left in the morning. I've tried contacting her but she's not picking up the phone. Just as the guard was about to respond to the aggressive man, The door to the building opened and 3 people stepped out. The captain had already heard about how his subordinate was having it hard, so he rushed ahead. The person that was dishing out threats was a middle-aged man with a black suit. He had short black hair that shone in the noon sun. Currently, he was putting on dark glasses. "Hello sir, please don't make things hard. I know that you also know the rules here. So please, don't make things hard for us," Tim said. "Who are you?" Frank frowned as he stared at Tim. "I'm Tim, the day shift captain." Even before Tim could finish introducing himself, he was pushed to the side as Frank had already seen Sabrina. He rushed towards her and began barking. "Mrs. Sabrina, what's the meaning of this? Look at what is happening here. I've tried calling you all this time but you didn't receive any of my calls. If I hadn't tried here, I wouldn't have gotten a chance to meet you today. I was sent by the head of the Dante family to come and look at the building before the decision is made. Now, I'm starting to have second thoughts about this." A barrage of words were thrown at Sabrina. And Jack, who was standing next to Sabrina, couldn't take it anymore. This guy was behaving arrogantly as if he owned the place. Having just bought the place, there was no way that Jack could allow a dog to bark wildly at the entrance. "Hey, can you have a little bit of self-respect and act like a grown-up? You're wearing a suit, but you're not acting with any type of etiquette at all," Jack said with a frown. Frank gazed at Jack ferociously and said, "Do you know who you're talking to, young man?" Frank hadn't expected that there was someone that would try lecturing him. Furthermore, the person that did so was only a youth. "What does your identity matter to me? Just behave like a civilized person and stop making noise here like a rabid dog." Jack didn't care about the identity of this person. After all, no matter what, he was just a member of a big family in a small city. It was not like he was from a big family that could threaten Jack. Anger could be seen in Frank's eyes as he stared at Jack coldly. It was as if he was going to eat him the next second, but Jack didn't care and remained calm. Frank pointed at Jack as he looked at Sabrina and reprimanded, "See here. If you can't teach your son or brother, I'll help you in educating him. How dare a small brat like him tall arg." However, before he finished whatever he was going to do next, he screamed in pain as he tried retracting the hand that was pointed towards Jack. "I don't like some nobodies pointing their fingers at me." At this moment, Jack's cold voice echoed. And with that, Jack dislocated the finger that was pointing at him. "Arg! You bastard, I'm going to kill you." Neither Frank nor Sabrina had expected that Jack would go physical here. But Sabrina felt happy but at the same time, worried. After all, Frank was a member of Dante family. But after a while, the worries disappeared as she looked at the building behind her. Even the Dante family had to discuss before buying it. On the other hand, Jack bought the whole building the moment that he set his eyes on it. There's no way a nobody had a balance of over $1 billion in his account. "Better get lost right now," Jack stated calmly, as if he hadn't heard Frank's threats. "You dare? I'm going to make sure that you'll disappear from this world today. Not even your family will be spared," Frank roared after hearing Jack's words. "You're more than welcome to go and destroy my family, but I'm not sure that you have the ability to do that," Jack spoke coldly. Frank was immediately furious. This was like Jack telling him that Dante family was inferior to his. He was just about to pounce on him when Tim and the other 2 guards held him. Tim knew that Jack was his new employer. After all, they had signed the contract inside there, in his presence. And he'd seen Jack transferring the money. Seeing that he was being held back, Frank pointed at Sabrina and yelled, "You're just standing there while looking at these dogs holding me and that brat over there talking to me as if I'm his mate. Be sure that I'm going to cancel the deal. We wanted to purchase a few floors but now, we're canceling the deal." With that, Frank showed his intention to leave. Thus, under the escort of the guards alongside Tim, Frank left the building's compound. Sabrina had wanted to tell him that she'd already sold the building. But, upon seeing Frank's furious face, she decided against it and thought that she would just call the family butler and inform him of this. As Frank left the place, he furiously thought to himself, "You just wait, you're just a small real estate agency manager. See if you won't come begging me to purchase the floors of that building. Humph. As for that brat, I'm going to make sure that he gets through a lot more." After taking a few steps, he suddenly remembered that he didn't even know Jack's name. He stopped and looked at the 3 that were escorting him out. "What's that brat's name?" "I'm sorry sir, but I cannot tell you any information about him," Tim replied. Among the 3, he was the only one that knew Jack's name. From the way that Frank was behaving, he was sure that he was planning something sinister. But Jack was going to be his boss. No, he was now his boss. How could he, a person in charge of security, give out information that could compromise his boss's security? Upon hearing Tim's reply, Frank's expression darkened further. He looked at Tim ferociously and said, "You know that I'm from the Dante family, the overlord of Incoat City. In other words, I can cause you more problems than you can imagine. So, if you don't tell me his name, I'm going to get a group of people to cause you problems here every day." Upon hearing this, Tim's expression wasn't good. He also knew the power of Dante family in Incoat City. If they decided to make things hard for him, there would be many complications. If this was another person, Tim would have surely thrown him out of here by now. But, since he was from the Dante family, he could only escort him out, making sure not to be rough on him. After thinking things through, he felt that, just a name wasn't that important information, right? Furthermore, a person that could purchase such a building wasn't someone small. So, he was sure that after Frank investigated this, he would give up, not trying to offend such a big shot. He is Mr. Jack. That's all that he knew. After all, he wasn't allowed to peep on the contents of the contract. That was something that involved the two parties. Frank, who was still smugly waiting for more information, was stumped on not hearing another word from Tim. He looked at him. And upon seeing that he had no intention of saying another word, he asked furiously, "What? That's all? You must be joking with me." Helplessly, Tim shook his head and said, "Mr. Frank, it's not that I want to hide anything. No, actually, that's all that I know about him. And, even if I knew more about him, I wouldn't tell you a thing about him." Upon seeing Tim's expression, the suspicion in Frank's eyes reduced. But, he asked another question: what were they here to do? Inspecting the building. Tim replied simply. He didn't say anything about the purchase of the building. He was sure that Frank was a smart person and could already guess the reason for the inspection. Who knew that he wasn't? How dare that B*TCH brings her cousin or brother here to dirty the floors that our Dante family wanted to buy? Just you wait. And with that, he strode towards the Mercedes-AMG. After getting inside, he drove away, heading towards the Dante family mansion that was located in Happy Residential Area, one of the luxury residential area in the city. On the way, he took out his phone before making a call. After a while, a male voice came from the other side. "Yes, Frank? This was the family's butler. I would like you to help me investigate a boy called Jack. He's got some involvement in the business overlord building. I've been trying to reach out to Sabrina, but that lady has been making things hard for me. I think that this might be related to this young man." Frank's tone this time wasn't arrogant as the one he used to talk to Jack and the others. "Are you sure about this? You know how important that building is, don't you?" The old voice was filled with suspicion. "Yes, I know. That's why I was asking for that kid to be investigated. After all, he gained access to the building," Frank hurriedly replied. "Okay, I know what to do," the old voice replied before hanging up. Seeing that the phone had already been hanged up, Frank's expression darkened. But, he could do nothing but curse at that old man. After seeing that the nuisance was gone, Jack went back to the underground parking lot and drove his Bentley Continental GT out. Since he had promised her a meal, he took her to a well-known 5-star hotel present in Incoat City, Glaze Hotel. This was just a branch of this popular hotel. The Glaze Hotel was a well-known 5-star hotel in the country. So, the dishes served here were top-notch. And, the total cost of the meal was $78,950. Then, he took Sabrina back to Homescope Properties Limited. There, he received the keys and the certificates of each floor. After placing them in the car, he drove away, leaving behind Sabrina. Sabrina then went to her office under the gazes of her juniors. After getting into her office, she looked at the phone that was on the desk. After seeing that Jack had a balance of over $1 billion, she'd been flustered in that she completely forgot about taking her phone along when they were going to the bank. Picking up the phone, she saw that there were more than 14 missed calls and about 10 messages. As for the calls, most of them were from Frank. He was the one in charge of negotiating the deal of the building. After some thought, she decided to make a call to the butler of Dante family and inform them that the building had been sold already. But, before she could call, her phone rang. Upon closer look, she found that it was an unfamiliar caller. After some thought, she picked the call. "Hello, may I know who you are?" "Mrs. Sabrina, I'm Kevin Dante, the current head of Dante family," a male voice introduced itself. The voice was quite deep and was filled with majesty and authority. Sabrina's heart skipped a beat when she heard of the other party's identity. She'd never expected that the family head would call her. After calming down, she replied politely and respectfully, "Oh, it's Mr. Kevin. Forgive me for my rudeness." "It's okay," Kevin replied. "May I know why you called?" Sabrina asked. Though, she could already link it to the business overlord building and Jack. "I wanted to talk about the issue concerning the business overlord building," Kevin replied calmly. "Just as I thought," Sabrina thought to herself. "Oh, I see. But, there's something that I wanted to tell you first," Sabrina replied. "No need to worry about that. Let me speak first," Kevin interrupted. And upon getting Sabrina's consent, he continued. "We have already discussed the issue concerning the building. We've decided that we're going to purchase the 15 top floors first. Then, we are going to purchase the others at the start of next year." Upon hearing his words, Sabrina could only tap her head as she nervously replied, "I'm sorry, Mr. Kevin. But, the business overlord building has already been sold." She knew that this was going to cause a big commotion in the city. After all, many people knew that the Dante family was planning to purchase the building. But now, Jack came and paid for everything at a single go. As a real estate agency manager, her role was to sell the buildings to those who wanted to buy them. The Dante family was delaying so much on that. After seeing that Jack was interested in the building, she agreed to sell it to him. What? As expected, Kevin immediately lost his composure. Kevin couldn't remain calm at all. They had planned to purchase the building for a month now. They were taking things at their own pace while thinking that there would be nobody that would be able to purchase it. After all, even they, the overlords of Incoat City, had to take a certain period of time to collect the current $350 million. It wasn't that they couldn't afford to pay the $700 million at once. It was just that, it would affect the cash flow of the Dante Corporation. Such a big corporation needed money. There was no way that they could leave their accounts empty. After all, in the case of emergency, they might fall due to lack of money. And, the big corporations could easily fall. The reason, with no money, they were sure that, the 5 families that had been beneath them all this while would surely unite to make sure that they would suffer greatly. In this way, they would either collapse or they would be on the same level as the other 5 families if they depended on their connections and foundation to survive. Today, when Frank called, he was present when the butler received the call, so, he had heard what Frank said. And from what he knew, there was no way that Sabrina would ignore them. So, he felt that something was wrong. That was why he called after a period of time. He wanted to confirm some things, and that was the reason as to why he asked Sabrina to let him speak first. It was to make sure that she knew that they were serious about buying the building. But now, he just heard that there was someone that had bought it. What floor was bought? Who is the one that bought it? Kevin asked immediately. Not floors, Mr. Kevin. He bought the whole building at a go and made full payment. Sabrina replied. For some reason, she felt happy bragging about Jack to these rich men of Incoat City. What did you just say? He bought the whole building? Are you kidding me? This is no time to joke. Who bought it? Kevin sent a barrage of words to Sabrina. And at this moment, she could feel that he was quite anxious. Well, she wasn't sure of it. But, she replied honestly, Mr. Kevin, you know that I cannot dare to joke with you concerning such a serious matter. The purchase was done today, about an hour ago. Upon hearing the seriousness in Sabrina's voice, Kevin finally understood that she wasn't joking and that the building had been bought by someone. Now, more than anything, he wanted to know who bought the building. He then thought to himself, did the 5 cooperate to buy the building? Or, did they know about my plan? As he thought of this, he asked, who is the one that bought it? You know that we had come to an agreement, but at the end of the day, you still sold it to someone else? Sabrina could easily feel the anger in Kevin's voice. Though he was trying to conceal it, there was no way that he could hide something like that. It could already be felt in the voice. She trembled a little before replying. It's not that I'm against the Dante family. It's just that, as you know, I look for those that want to buy the building. When he came to purchase the building, you still hadn't made a decision in whether you were going to buy it or not. She then continued, Mr. Jack came here to look for an office building. In the end, he found the business overlord building and fancied it. Then, he offered to pay for it in full. As you know, I had to accept such a deal. Kevin was silent for a moment before asking, Mr. Jack, is he the one that bought it? Sabrina felt that there was something wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. In the end, she nodded and replied, yes, he's the one that bought it. Okay, I got it. And with that, Kevin hung up the phone, leaving the uncertain Sabrina standing in her office, unsure of what to do. Happy residential area. Inside a big and majestic mansion, inside a study room. Kevin dropped the phone on the table and looked at the old man with white hair beside him and said, Uncle Reuben, help me investigate who this Jack is. I want to know if any of the 5 families have a hand in this. And if they are involved, they would have to suffer. Looking at Kevin's angry and malicious gaze, Reuben sighed and said, "Don't worry about that. I'll be sure to get all information about him. But, what should we do about that building? Find out who's involved in this first. As for the building, we have to get it by all means possible. Either rough or smooth, we cannot afford to lose that building at all." Kevin replied as he sat on the couch that was present in the room. Okay, with that, Reuben left the study room, leaving Kevin behind. Jack didn't know that buying the business overlord building would attract so much attention from the Dante family. Furthermore, it seemed that they wanted to get the building by all means. But even if he knew about it, he wouldn't care about it at all. After all, what could they do to him? Nothing, so what was there to get worried about? Currently, Jack was preparing himself for the banquet that would be held tomorrow evening. He wasn't sure who was holding the banquet, but he was going to get acquainted to some people so that his development here would be faster. After looking at his wardrobe for a period of time, he found that there was nothing that he could use in the occasion. All the clothes that he had were casual. Although he was from Alfonso family, he'd never gone to a banquet that involved the big bosses. But, he still knew that he had to put on official clothing so that he could show some respect for the one that had organized the banquet. After thinking things through, he got out of the mansion, got into the Bentley Continental GT and drove towards Delight Mall. In Inchoate City, there were 3 big malls. They were the Delight Mall, Pride Mall and finally, Tinko Mall. Amongst the 3, Pride Mall could be said to be leading. But, Jack went to Delight Mall because it was closer. After parking the car alongside the other luxurious cars, he got into the mall under the envious gazes of the boys and infatuated gazes of young beauties. This time, he didn't go to Terran designers. After all, they were good in customized clothing and he was looking for ones that were ready. The banquet was tomorrow and there was no time for him to wait for the suit to be completed. He looked at the clothing brands that were located on the 2nd floor. Finding that none of them matched his taste, he went to the 4th floor where men's brands could be found. Here, he could see the stores for Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Giorgio Armani, Balenciaga, H&M, Versace, Hermes, Prada and several others. After thinking, he decided on the one that was closer to him. It was the Louis Vuitton store. This was a top luxury clothing brand. After entering the store, he was welcomed by an enthusiastic saleslady. "Welcome sir, what type of clothes would you like?" Jack nodded to himself. As expected of the service of a top brand. Although Jack wasn't wearing anything special, the saleslady didn't look at him in contempt, but welcomed him well. "I would like a suit that can be used for a banquet. An official banquet to be precise. I don't know if you can recommend any to me?" Jack asked. The lady looked at Jack for a moment before replying, "There are several of them that can match you. I think they suit you well. Here, check this one out." As the lady spoke, she showed Jack a 2-piece white suit. The suit was made of cotton and thus was quite comfortable as he touched it. After a thought, Jack entered the changing room to test it out. Wow! When he came out of the changing room, he immediately caught the attention of the ladies that were here with their husbands or boyfriends. What a handsome man, he sure gives a rich vibe. Get lost you gold digger, only if my boyfriend was 10% as handsome, I could have accepted losing 10 years of my life. What do you mean, am I not handsome enough? Ah, humph, of course you're not. Look at your big nose. Look at how your head is shaped like a bean seed. Look at how big your eyes are. We're done for. You be *tch, humph, never let me not see your face again. What? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Jack's appearance had caused the infatuation and appreciation to flood towards him from the ladies. But, it had also attracted the envy and hatred from the men whose women were attracted to him. Jack looked at the mirror and found that, although the suit was good, he found that it was quite tight for him. It didn't seem that much comfortable as the casual clothes that he usually wore. After thinking things through, he asked, "Do you have suits that are made from cashmere?" After waiting for a moment and receiving no reply, Jack looked at the saleslady and noticed that she was staring at him in a daze. He touched his face before looking at his reflection in the mirror. He noticed that there was nothing wrong. Then, he looked at the lady and waved his hand in front of her. "Hello lady, are you there?" Oh, I'm sorry sir, I was lost there." The lady blushed as she replied with her head lowered. "It's okay. Do you have suits made from cashmere?" He repeated the question once again. When Jack mentioned the word cashmere, it caused a commotion among the crowd. One had to know the fact that cashmere was the most expensive material used in making clothes. And now, Jack was asking for a suit that was made from this material. The result here would be pretty much obvious. The price of the suit would be sky high. If one was seen wearing a clothing that was made from this material, it was an indicator of his/her wealth. But of course, Jack was only doing this because the clothes made from this material were much more comfortable. "Are you sure about that, sir? The price will be higher," the saleslady reminded. Although Jack had confidence, the lady wasn't that confident that Jack could afford the clothes made from that material. She couldn't be blamed. After all, that clothing material was one that only the rich could afford. In fact, that material was one that many of those that wanted to show off would buy, as there were those that wouldn't buy it although it was comfortable. After all, they would just say, "Cotton and linen are also fine with me. Why should I buy that one? Worry not about money. You can just bring me all those that fit me here. I'll be taking all of them," Jack stated, making the minds of all those around buzz. There were some that couldn't hold it anymore and went forward to remind him, "Young man, you should know that cashmere is the most expensive material used in making clothes. So, if you decide to take all the clothes made from this material as long as they fit you, I'm sure that you'll end up spending tens of millions. Yeah, you better not ask for that. It's better if you can just take the ones that you can afford. There's no need for you to try showing off in front of us." "Right. Boy, there's no need to embarrass yourself by not having enough money to pay for the clothes after they pack them for you. Thank you for the reminder. But, I know what I'm doing," Jack replied calmly. Young men nowadays. They're so hot-blooded. We're trying to advise him out of goodwill and he thinks that we're nosy. "Humph, continue being arrogant and let me see how you pay for the clothes." Jack was left stunned by this barrage of words. He then wondered to himself, have I not just meant that I can afford the clothes? Where and when did I say that you're being nosy? When and how did I become arrogant? Of course, Jack had no idea that all these guys were targeting him because their girls had been impressed by his handsome face. They could already see that the way that the girls were looking at them had changed. Now, they were using this chance to completely suppress Jack so as to make sure that their women would see that he had no ability at all. But, who would have thought that the girls wouldn't give up on him? Upon seeing that many people were against Jack, they began refuting them. "What do you mean? Do you know about his pocket's depths?" "Yeah, right. You guys are just jealous. Stop spouting nonsense. If you can't afford it, that doesn't mean that he can't afford it too. You guys are envious of his handsome face. Now that you see that he's also rich, you're trying to suppress him." Those whose girlfriends or wives spoke up for Jack were left speechless. They then thought to themselves, is she my girl or his? Jack on the other hand seemed to have gotten an idea on what was going on. But, since it was nothing important, he decided to turn a blind eye to the tricks and plans. He looked at the still dazed saleslady and shook his head helplessly. He was just about to remind her when someone asked, "What's going on here?" The crowd parted, revealing a mature lady in an official business suit. She had a mature vibe and was quite a beauty in her mid-30s. The saleslady hurried towards the woman in the red dress and explained what had just happened. The lady raised her brows when she heard this. Then, she scanned Jack up and down before saying, "Hello, I'm Jessica, the manager of Louis Vuitton. Are you sure about the clothes made from cashmere?" Jack could only let out an exasperated sigh. Then, he spread his hands and said, "The same question again and again. I've already said that I'm going to take them. I know that the price for the clothes that are made from cashmere is high. But, I still said that I want them. Doesn't that mean that I know what I'm talking about?" Jack's words made the manager slightly embarrassed. After all, a customer had asked for the same thing several times already, but they were still asking if he was sure about it. "So, to make up for this, I'm sorry for that. I'll bring them for you." And as she said that, she left with the saleslady and headed towards another room. The clothes that were made from cashmere were rarely sold, so they were usually kept inside the store's warehouse. Jack then waited for about a minute before Jessica came out with several clothes. Even the saleslady was carrying some. But even from afar, Jack could already tell that there weren't that many of them. It seemed that since there was no market for the clothes made from the material in the small cities, they're mainly found in the big cities. Jack didn't say another word. He simply took a look at the clothes and could see that there were two pairs of suits, one blue and another was black. As for the others, Jack didn't care at all. Since all of these were the ones that could fit him, he was going to take them all. As for the others, he'll check them out after he got home. Pack all of them. Here's the card, you can just swipe, Jack stated as he took out his black card. And the moment that the black card was taken out, the commotion rose again. But of course, this time, there were those that hurried to leave the store. They were the ones that were trying to suppress Jack. Oh my god, that's a black card, wait, it seems to be from Flyer's bank. Hey, what can a black card do? Ain't it just a difference in colors? You country bumpkin, what are you doing in this store if you don't know something simple? What has that have to do with that black card? It has everything to do with it. That's a black card that is given to the bank VIPs. Only those that have a deposit of 100 million in their accounts can receive it. What? 100 million? Maybe you don't know as you're a country bumpkin. But, I'll be magnanimous and tell you this. You see that card? That's a black card from Flyer's bank. For one to have it, you must have a deposit of at least $500 million. Hiss, that much? So, that guy over there is a nouveau riche? Hee, I heard someone saying that he can't afford the clothes. Someone with liquid cash of at least 500 million, do you think that he's the same as you? That's not adding his fixed assets just yet. Humph, you may not know this but, it may be a fake one. Right, there are some idiots who try faking cards just to show off. Hey, shut that big trap of yours. Do you know where we are? This is Louis Vuitton, a top brand. Who dares to play fraudulent here? Even Jessica was surprised to see this card. It was not that she'd never dealt with a person with a black card. But, this was different. This was a black card from Flyer's bank. To get the black card of Flyer's bank, one had to have at least $500 million. She received the card respectfully. Then, she swiped the card. After Jack entered his PIN, the ding sound of payment success rang. The crowd was immediately amazed. After all, Jack hadn't even asked about the price and had paid it immediately. No bargaining, no request for discounts and so on. Where's that guy? Can a fraudster pay that using a fake card? Hey, I'm envious. That guy is not only handsome, but he's rich as well. Why can't I be rich as him? Not even handsome. Hey, take your big mouth outside. Do you think that you're qualified to make comparison with him? Man, buying without asking for the price and discounts. How cool that is. Yeah, that's the world of the rich. After confirming that everything was okay, Jessica took the receipt and handed it to Jack while saying, a total of $6.4 million. We didn't have that much stock of the clothes that are your size. At the same time, the sales lady hurriedly packed the clothes in a good package before placing them inside 3 Louis Vuitton bags. Hiss, did I hear things right? Did she just say that the clothes were $64,000? Hey, sleepyhead. Sleeping while standing. She said $6.4 million. Hiss. And he paid without questions. Don't you see the black card? It has hundreds of millions in it. What can a small $6.4 million be big? What nonsense are you spouting? $6.4 million is a small amount. Can you afford? I wasn't talking about myself, I was talking about him. You're a man, not his girlfriend, how can you brag in his stead? The crowd went on and on about this and that. In the end, the commotion attracted the salespersons from the other stores. They crowded the entrance to the Louis Vuitton store while trying to attract Jack's attention. After all, if a super rich person was here, how could they miss on a chance of getting more money from him? The higher the amount of money that he'll spend, the higher their commission would be. Although Jack wanted to buy clothes, that didn't mean that he was just going to mindlessly spend money to buy clothes that at the end of the day, he wouldn't wear. So, after getting out of the Louis Vuitton store, he only accepted the offer of the ones in charge of the watch and jewelry store. He went into a Vacheron Constantin shop. There, he looked at the watches present. After spending some time looking at the watches presented to him by the manager, Jack finally made his decision. He bought the most expensive watch that was present in the shop. He didn't buy it because of the high price, but because he was attracted by the watch. After all, men went for sports cars and watches. The watch that he'd chosen was a Vacheron Constantin Traditionnel. This was a limited edition with only 4 pieces in the world. Since there were only 4 pieces in the world, that meant that what they had in this shop at the moment was a replica. A model if you would like. So, Jack would have to wait for it to be delivered to him. The price of this watch was $8 million. Jack paid for it immediately after he came to an agreement. He was given the receipt that he would use to claim the watch once it was delivered. Jack's way of spending money had bewildered many of those that had gathered around to watch him spending money. Since the Vacheron Constantin Traditionnel wasn't present, Jack had to look for another watch. So, he turned towards the crowd at the entrance of the store and asked, "Is there a good watch present in any of your stores?" As soon as Jack said these words, the crowd piped up. After all, this was a tycoon who wanted to spend. Those that were in charge of the watches shop immediately came forward. "We have the limited edition Rolex. Leave that aside, we have a Patek Philippe. Our Cartier has one too." All of the managers present were trying to pull on this rich man. Jack waved his hand to the noisy crowd and stated, "I want a readily available one. The one that I can wear tomorrow." Upon hearing Jack's words, most of them were dejected. Although there were still a few good watches, they weren't at a level of those limited editions. From the way that Jack was asking, it was obvious that he wanted the limited edition watches. As they retreated, a lady walked forward and said to Jack, "Handsome, we do have one with us. I guess you're really lucky. It was going to be shipped off today when we close in the evening." Jack looked at the lady and asked curiously, "What brand is it?" The lady straightened her posture and said, "I am from Patek Philippe." Jack nodded. It wasn't a bad brand and the watches that they made were good to suit his taste. So, he followed the lady back to her store. The others could only moan at their misfortune. At the same time, they could only blame the higher-ups for letting them keep a model on this day. After all, this was money, but they could only watch it walk away. After getting into the store, the crowd followed and stood at the entrance, and, when others that had just arrived on this floor saw the scene here, they would immediately join them. So, the whole floor became crowded. In the end, the mall's management was alerted and was forced to come and see what was happening here. They were both surprised and delighted that they could get a rich customer that could spend over 10 million in a single go. Jack looked at the watch that was presented to him. Before he could say a word, the manager began introducing the watch. This watch is called Patek Philippe Nautilus 5719 G. There are only 7 pieces in the world as we speak. 4 of them have already been bought. It has self-winding mechanical movement. Its caliber is 26 to 330 SC. The dial is fully set with 255 diamonds, 1.36 quart, and 3 baguette diamond hour markers, 0.01 quart, and 18K gold dial plate. The case is white gold. Has a screw-down crown. There is a sapphire crystal case back. It is water-resistant to 120 meters. It has a diameter, 10.4 o'clock, 40 millimeters and a height of 8.7 millimeters. The case has 100 diamonds, 0.69 quart and 32 baguette diamonds. 5.51 quart. The dial is fully set with 255 diamonds, 1.36 quart, and 3 baguette diamond hour markers, 0.01 quart. The bracelet has 803 diamonds, 3.55 quart and 150 baguette diamonds, 7.52 quart in total. There are 1,343 diamonds, 18.73 quart. As fit the strap, it is a Nautilus fold-over clasp. The lady finished the introduction of the watch and the result was that a commotion rose among the crowd. Did you hear that? What a noble and luxurious watch. Right, Patek Philippe has overdone itself. What overdone? That's a limited edition. Of course, it has to be better than your normal watches. My, did you hear how many diamonds are embedded on the watch? Yeah, 1,343 diamonds. That's a lot. Only if my boyfriend can get me a diamond ring. Forget it, your boyfriend is as broke as hell. Do you think I have a chance of hooking up with such a handsome and rich young man? Hey, forget it. Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? Only a dog can accept to be your boyfriend. Hey, I have a boyfriend already. That's because he's a dog. In other words, he behaves like a dog, going around with several girls, not even sure who's his girlfriend. Jack didn't care about what these people were talking about. He simply strapped the watch to his wrist. It fit him well. Feeling the weight of the watch on his left hand, Jack immediately felt that he was complete. After that, he turned towards the manager and gave her the card to complete the payment. As she had already seen the scene of Jack paying without asking for a price, the lady was quite prepared. So, she swiped the card and completed the payment. Then, immediately after that, she handed Jack the receipt. The total is $11 million. Jack nodded and received the receipt. Then, he turned around and left. The manager was about to tell him that there was a free gift that accompanied the watch and the packaging wasn't done yet. In the end, Jack was fast and had already walked out of the shop and entered the clamoring crowd. Even if Jack knew that there was something like packaging, he wouldn't care at all. After all, he bought the watch to wear and not to keep it hidden inside a box. The crowd parted, allowing Jack, who was currently carrying the bags from Louis Vuitton store, to pass. He was just about to leave the site after refusing several girls that were trying to exchange contacts with him, but he was stopped by a pot-bellied man. The man was sweating. He had obviously rushed over here after hearing the news of Jack's spending spree. After greeting and introducing himself as the general manager of the Delight Mall, he handed Jack a golden card. "What, did you see that? It's the golden card. What do you know? He just spent over $25 million just now." "Yes. A golden card is given to those that have spent over $10 million in the mall." "What about the silver and bronze ones? I saw someone using them to easily shop here." "Humph. A bronze one is for those that have spent $500,000. The silver card is for those that have spent over $1 million. As for the golden one, it's for the ones that have spent over $10 million. Hey, don't you dare to abuse me. Do you even have a bronze card?" "Ah, it doesn't matter." Humph. Jack received the card without much of an issue. Currently, he'd already spent more than $30 million in Delight Mall. After all, Terran Designers was located in Delight Mall. Now, he'd spent over $5 million for the uniforms orders. After leaving the mall, Jack entered his Bentley Continental GT and headed back to the mansion. He had to rest well. That night, he received a total of $2,750,548. In the end, his account received a total of $272,304,252, bringing his total to $672,785,379. Jack now didn't care about this money for now. That he cared for was the stabilization of the grocery department. So, he decided that he would let the management of the grocery department go to the business overlord building on Monday. In this way, the foundation would be built. The following evening, Jack wore the blue three-piece suit that was made from cashmere. Accompanying this was a pair of shoes that he'd bought when he was still in the Alfonso family mansion. His silver hair was combed backwards, giving him an elegant look and at the same time, a dashing and domineering CEO vibe. Looking at his reflection in the mirror, Jack couldn't help but praise himself for being handsome. Now that all of this was done, it was time for him to go to the banquet. Looking at the invitation cards in his hand, Jack didn't know what to do. After all, he was only a single person, but Anderson had given him 2 of them. At that time, he hadn't checked it, but now, he could see that there were 2 cards. Sighing, he decided to take the extra card with him. This time, he decided to drive the Bugatti Veyron. After all, he wasn't rewarded the car so that it could remain in the garage. Today's event was being held in the Glaze Hotel. As the biggest hotel present in the city, it was obvious that such a big event that involved the big shots of the city had to be held in a place where it matched their reputation. Of course, till this moment, Jack only knew that the event involved the big shots of Inchoate City, but he didn't know what the event was for. Well, not that anything matters, as what he was going to do there was to make connections that could help him in the future. In other words, he had already begun building the foundations of his Jackson enterprise. After all, no matter the amount of money that he had in his hands, he still needed the connections to get whatever he needed. This was considering the fact that there were things that could not be bought by money alone. After all, there were things that were special in such a way that the seller could only sell them to the person that he or she knew. The banquet was going to begin at around 6 p.m. so, Jack wasn't worried so much about the speed at which he was driving the Bugatti Veyron. But, although Jack didn't care about this, that didn't mean that the others didn't care about it. The appearance of the Bugatti Veyron on the road had already caused a commotion among those that saw it. After all, this was a car worth several tens of millions of dollars. On the road, drivers took the initiative to clear the way for him, so that they could avoid any accident that could occur in such a way that they would be forced to pay if they scratched the Bugatti Veyron. Of course, Jack had never expected that driving the Bugatti Veyron would cause such a sensation. He was out driving the car that he was given by the system as everyone and not to show off. But the result was that he had attracted the attention of many people. By the time that he got to the hotel, Jack had already gotten used to people getting out of his way or some pointing at his car. Since today was when the banquet was being held, the whole hotel had been reserved by the one that was holding the banquet. This showed that the host wasn't a small person to begin with. So, on this very day, only those with the invitation letters could access the Glaze Hotel. If a person didn't have the invitation, they would be turned around no matter who they were. But, as soon as Jack's Bugatti Veyron showed up, The guards didn't dare to stop him and ask for the invitation card. Although Jack was quite startled by this, he shrugged his shoulders as this was to his convenience. He wanted to get the attention of all those that was staring at him away. The parking lot of the Glaze Hotel was underground. The Glaze Hotel itself was an 8-story building. The ground floor was the reception hall. It was well just in case the dining place was full. The customers could wait for the tables to be freed. As for the first floor of the hotel, that was where the general public could take their meals. The second floor was where there were private rooms. These private rooms were nothing special other than privacy that they offered. On the third, fourth and fifth floors, that was where the lodging rooms were located. On the sixth floor, that was where there were VIP-level rooms. The seventh floor was a huge hall where meetings and conferences were held. It was big enough in that some of the ceremonies such as their banquet that was being held on this day could be carried inside. As for the 8th floor, that was the presidential suite area. There are only 4 rooms on the 6th floor. In other words, in the whole Glaze Hotel, there were only 4 presidential suites. Taking the elevator to the ground floor, Jack found that this floor didn't have as much congestion as it was the previous day when he was here to treat Sabrina to a meal. As soon as he came out of the elevator, he was welcomed by the enthusiastic Anderson. "Jack, you're already here. For a while I thought that you weren't coming," Anderson said as he put his hands around Jack's shoulder. "Of course I had to come. After all, you guys had invited me here, and by the way, I thought that there's still an hour before the banquet begins," Jack replied while looking at Anderson with a strange gaze. Ignoring Jack's gaze and words, Anderson looked around as if trying to find someone. After looking around for a while, he looked at Jack and asked, "Where's your partner?" Jack wasn't expecting such a question at all. The only person that Jack could be said to be close to in Inchoate City would be George. But Anderson knew very well that George could not come to this event because of the bet that he had made with Ismail. He could only ask, "What partner? I don't think I have a partner." Jackson's reply made Anderson's brows to twitch slightly. He then looked at Jack as if he was looking at a strange species that has yet to be recognized. After a moment of staring, he asked, "You don't have a partner for the dance tonight? You got 2 invitation cards. One for you and the other for your female companion. What dance are you talking about? Isn't this an occasion that the big wigs of the city will be attending?" Jack asked confusedly. After all, when he received the invitation, he hadn't expected that there will be something like dancing and whatever. He had a thought that it was just a normal banquet where people would be meeting and discussing business most of the time. Furthermore, he only noticed that there were 2 cards when he was about to leave the mansion. But, even after seeing that there were 2 cards, he had thought that they had given him an extra card by mistake. Who knew that they had given out 2? But even so, Jack didn't have a lady that could accompany him to such an event. He was a solo man after all. Anderson palmed his forehead as he spoke. I forgot to give you the schedule of events here. How bad of me. Anyway, I can tell you now that there would be a performance, then it will be followed by a meal. Then, there would be introductions about the host of the event. After that, there would be a dance, and finally the main topic that had brought all the people here. One more thing that I can tell you is that the host of the event has a special identity in that even the Dante family has to pay respects. So, you better be cautious while inside there and not to offend the host of the occasion. If the 2 of you are enemies, I can assure you that you cannot survive in this country." Anderson's words were quite solemn and Jack could sense the seriousness in his voice. He then wondered to himself, who is this person with such a special identity in Inchoate City? But, all those thoughts were thrown at the back of his mind when Anderson asked again about his dancing partner. Jack shook his head as he said that he would not participate in the dance. The reason for this being that, although he had been trained in dancing, since he had never attended any banquet, he had never experienced dancing in front of many people. Now that he had no dancing partner, it will make things easier for him as he could just sit down and watch the show in progress. Seeing that Jack was being serious about not having a partner, Anderson patted his shoulder and said, "Worry not, I'm sure that you will get a good girl inside there. What do you think of Kelly?" "Buzz off." Jack's reply was simple. "Haha, I was joking. Let's get in." Anderson laughed as he said these words. It was obvious that he had become quite at ease in Jack's presence as compared to Friday night. And as he said these words, he pulled Jack towards the elevator that led to the 7th floor of the building. When they reached there, Jack found that many people had already arrived. Even William, Kelly and the others had already arrived. When they saw Jack coming in with Anderson, they came over to greet him. The hall this time was arranged in such a way that there was several tables and chairs forming a semicircle. At the end of the semicircle, there was a small stage on which he assumed that the host of the event or those who were going to speak in the event were going to stand on. At the center of the semicircle was the dancing area. The hall was well decorated and lit. The luxury of the hall was at a level that Jack had only seen when there was a banquet back at the Alfonso family mansion. At that time, he was only passing by and he saw the scene of how the hall was decorated. Now, he could finally experience how a banquet was. Jack sat alongside the young masters of Incoed City. But of course, the sitting area that he was in was different from where the other big shots of the city sat since he was seated with the young masters of the Big Five. He was obviously close to the stage. As more and more people came in, the hall was completely filled. And during this time that they were waiting, Jack used it to familiarize himself with these youngsters. He got to know the traits and characters alongside their relationship. Although they were competing, the relationship between them was pretty good. But that didn't mean that they weren't competing. If there was an occasion that needed one of the five to take advantage, they would surely compete so that their family could gain the advantage. Just as it was stated, the banquet began on time. Music echoed inside the hall. Then, the MC began by introducing why the banquet was held. According to him, it was to welcome a new person into Incoed City. But he didn't speak too much as the banquet went on. Jack was quite focused on the big shots that were being introduced by William and the others. He noticed that, although the banquet was held here, there were some people that came here from other cities, obviously here to curry favor. Well, what do we have here? Just as Jack thought that things are going quite well, an arrogant voice made him and the group to turn around and look behind them. Kelly frowned when she saw who had spoken. Young Master Ben. I saw that you were having a good time here, so I decided to join you guys. What do you think? As he spoke, Ben made his way to them and sat on a chair that had been vacated by one of the youths. Jack could see that the mood wasn't that good as soon as this person arrived. From their expressions, Jack already guessed that the relationship between them wasn't that good. But what he knew was that, if there was a person that could make these five people frown, then that person must have a background that supported him. Oh, I see that you have another friend that has already joined your circle, Ben said as he looked at Jack. But from this gaze, Jack could already see that this person was looking down on him. He frowned. This person must have come here to cause problems, and from the way that he was gazing at him, he was sure that he was going to try using him and find a way to cause trouble. But one question remained lingering in his mind: who on earth was this youth that had come to cause trouble for the young masters of the Big Five of Incoed City? As if sensing what Jack was thinking, William, who was sitting on Jack's left, whispered to him, "That is Benson Tawal, the young master of Tawal family of Blue City. His family is the overlord of Blue City. Although the Blue City is on the same level as Incoed City, their family assets are slightly lower than the Dante family. But this level is already higher as compared to us. But once he comes to Incoed City, he obviously doesn't have that much of an influence. So, the only way that he can use to suppress us is in racing. Nobody in the younger generation of our city can defeat him." Jack was quite surprised after hearing about the young man's background. He couldn't hold himself back anymore and asked, "Is he that amazing?" "Of course, he is. But that only applies to amateurs like us. For a professional like you, he definitely cannot compare." William chuckled as he replied. At this time, Ben, who was arguing with the others, turned his attention back to Jack. He then arrogantly spoke, "Guys, you haven't introduced me to this friend of yours that has recently joined your circle. I am pretty sure that whoever joins your circle must have capabilities, am I right?" When William heard this, although he frowned for a moment, his expression relaxed the next moment. With a sly smile, he spoke, "Young Master Ben surely knows us too well. He's Jack. And of course he has abilities that not even you can compare to." Ben, who was smiling smugly just a moment ago, frowned when he heard William's words. He gave Jack a scrutinizing gaze before shifting his attention back to William and asked, "Can you please enlighten me on what he does best?" From this, it showed that he didn't put Jack in his eyes at all. In other words, he thought that Jack wasn't worthy enough to speak to him. This time, William didn't reply as he looked at Jack for confirmation. In reply, Jack simply shrugged his shoulders to show that he didn't mind. It wasn't like William had any kind of information that could hurt him. Upon receiving Jack's consent, William stared at Ben with a teasing smile. "Don't you always feel proud that you are good at racing? Now, even our own city has its own master in racing. And I can assure you that you are not his match." When Ben heard these words, he frowned for a moment before chuckling. If it were not for the fact that they were in an ongoing banquet, he would have surely laughed loudly. He gazed at Jack contemptuously before sneering, "Him? There's no one in the surrounding cities that can match me in terms of racing. Not even in Crystal City." Anderson and the others shook their heads in pity. They themselves had experienced Jack's driving skills. As compared to Ben's, Jack's level was like heaven while Ben's was like mud. Seeing their expressions, Ben frowned and said, "Why don't we have a competition tonight? We can decide on the stake after the banquet is over." When they heard his words, Anderson alongside those that had been present during the race or had seen the replay in the internet smiled. At the same time, they thought to themselves, here comes a chance to earn big. Jack on the other hand frowned a little. From the way things were, it seems that this guy would not stop pestering him until he had been proven to be inferior when it comes to racing. At the same time, he thought of the 10 million that he had earned the previous time he raced. He then thought to himself, this might actually be a good chance for him to gain more money that could be used for investment. Currently, the money that came from the grocery department could already ensure the stability of the grocery department in the city. But, when Jackson Enterprise was involved, this was actually a very tiny amount of money. So he thought to himself, why not compete and earn a few more dollars that could be used in developing the enterprise? With that thought in mind, he agreed to Ben's words. When he saw that Jack had agreed, Ben sneered even more. Just as the group was about to continue chatting, their attention was captured by the performance on the stage. On this day, they had invited a famous singer. He was an R&B popular star. His name was Josh. He had already released several albums and he was well known in the internet and had millions of fans. For him to be present here, it could already show the power of the host of the event. After all, inviting such a big shot in the entertainment industry not only required money, but also needed reputation and connections. After all, celebrities were always busy with this or that. For them to make time in their busy schedule would need a person that had more than money to get them to reschedule. Jack was also an R&B lover, so he shifted his attention to the performance on the stage while ignoring whatever Ben was going to say next. The songs that Josh chose for the occasion were not only entertaining, but were also very well matched with today's setup. From this, one could already see that Josh was a person that had attended several banquets that involved big shots. But this was to be expected as he was currently a big celebrity in the music industry. The songs that he sang were not only according to the morals that most of the people liked, but also had some of the lessons that could be learned from. This was the exact reason as to why, although there were several old men or middle-aged men and women present, none of them complained about the choice of the artist. But even so, who would dare to complain about the host's choices? After the performance, food was served. The delicious smell that was emitted by the food immediately made their stomachs of some of the guests present to grumble a little. Although some of them had already eaten before they came here, they could not resist the temptation of such a delicious meal. From the food, one could already see that the hotel's kitchen staff had put in more effort when preparing this meal. Even the way that it was served was an indication of both art and skills. This was truly a definition of a 5-star hotel. There was seafood like cioppino, crab cakes, oysters, Rockefeller and clam chowder. As for the other types of foods, there were several foods that were made from chicken, meat or pork. Salad and vegetables were also served. There are several other types of foods that a person could think of, including different types of drinks. During this period of time, people would serve themselves. No, to be precise about it, it was that they would eat what they chose. There were waiters who were doing the serving. One just had to mention what he or she wanted and the food would be served and brought to them. When it came to meals, Jack was not a gentleman at all. He ate according to what he liked or what had impressed him. He had never tested several of the foods that were present here before, so he decided to take this chance and test some of them. But of course, he wouldn't dare to mix some of the foods that would end up messing up his stomach. Furthermore, he knew his own limit and didn't dare to embarrass himself in front of all of these people present. After all, if it was just about food, he could come back to the hotel and get more. During the meal, he sat alongside William and the rest. Ben had already left and was somewhere looking for girls to hook up with them. That's the life of a playboy like him. After all, his family dominated Blue City. As a result, he ended up being arrogant and got used to getting what he wanted. But here he was much more restrained because not only was this not his home ground, but the host of the banquet was a big shot with a big background. When they were eating, they gradually began discussing about what they would get from Ben after he lost the bet. According to them, this was a sure bet. During the meal, Jack was looking around casually when his gaze froze for a moment, as he stared at a figure close to the door that led to the stage. Although he had only seen her 2 times, he could still remember her figure. Looking at that back that was facing him, Jack was once again entranced. He then wondered to himself, was it fate that was bringing them together, or was it just a coincidence that they were meeting again and again? As if sensing his gaze, the lady turned around and stared directly into his eyes. And just like that, the duo stared at each other, each one of them having their own thoughts running in their minds. Jack's mind raced. This was getting more and more weird. He was now wondering why he would get some kind of emotions that he'd never experienced when he faced this lady. It wasn't that Jack hadn't met with beautiful women. Not at all. Kelly, who was seated not far from him, was considered a beauty. So, he wondered to himself what was so special about this lady, and that, every time that he met her, his mind and heart raced. Jack was still staring at her intently when he was forced to change his gaze due to Anderson's question. "Hey, Jack, who are you staring at?" Jack looked at him for a moment before turning his gaze back towards the door. In the end, he found that the lady had already left. "So, to make this guy to stop spouting nonsense," he replied, "I was looking at someone by the door there. But she's gone. So, there's no need for you to worry about anything." "What do you mean by not worry?" "I have to worry that you may fail to get a partner for tonight's dance. That won't look good for you, considering that Benson is here. He would surely try getting into your head if you don't find a partner." Anderson refuted as he placed his plate on the table. Then, he looked at the others that were busy eating while chatting. He shook his head and said, "Everyone here has a partner. Look at that fatty over there. Look at that beautiful girl. She's his partner tonight. Look at that stickman over there. You see that plump lady? That's his wife. So, if you don't get a partner and everyone goes onto the dance floor, you would be the odd one out. Furthermore, if everyone is on the dance floor, then, everyone can see you. Who's seated while others are dancing." Anderson continued talking while ignoring Jack's strange gaze. "I had previously thought that there would be a nice lady that didn't come here with a partner. In the end, it seems that they all agreed to come in pairs. Whoops, I forgot. We agreed to come in pairs." Anderson showed a smile as he said these words. Jack wondered to himself if this guy was here to help him or he was here to tease him. But at the end of the day, he had no words to say about this. "What are you guys talking about?" William, who had somehow sneaked on them, asked curiously. "Jack doesn't have a partner for tonight's dance," Anderson replied with a chuckle. "He doesn't have a partner? I thought that we gave him 2 cards, William asked as he stared at Jack incredulously. "Did you see someone sitting beside him all this while?" Ismail asked. He wasn't someone that liked to speak too much because he was a short-tempered person. And looking at how the group had suddenly began grouping up, Jack couldn't help but feel speechlessness striking him. He then thought to himself, is not having a partner in a banquet a sin? "Oh, now that you mention it, I didn't see anyone beside Jack. All this while, I had forgotten about that." William scratched the back of his head as he said these words. "Of course you would forget about others when thinking about the time that you and your girl will be twisting your bodies on the dance floor," Kelly snorted. William could only cough in embarrassment because he knew whatever Kelly said was true. But, he wasn't to blame. The girl that had accompanied him here tonight was definitely a beauty. Anyway, Jack was looking at a lady. He said that she was standing at that door over there, Anderson said after he felt that there was nobody that was going to talk. "You mean that Jack has taken a fancy to a girl here? If so, I can help him get her, even if she's married. She'll just have to divorce her husband." The burly guy, Luke Radvon, spoke with a smile. "What are you guys talking about? Do you know who's allowed to use that door? It's obviously the hosts of the banquet. So, better not think about that lady if she was from behind that door." At this time, Ismail reminded. This brought everyone's thoughts back in line. As they thought of the scene where they wanted to connect Jack with the person that was related to the host of the event, they sweated a little. Come on, if even Ben has the guts to chase after a girl that's in the group of today's banquet hosts, how can Jack not qualify? I'm sure that even if it was a beautiful lady hosting this banquet, Jack can match her. At this time, William said with a smile. Yeah. The group agreed, making Jack even more speechless. These people were talking about him as if he wasn't there at all. By the way, my father told me that the host of today's banquet was a beauty. He told me that, with our family's current position, I cannot afford to offend her. Not even the Dante family can dare to do that. Anderson spoke. She's a beauty, hee hee, right on time. She surely must be Jack's woman. Hey Jack, we'll have your back as you get that lady. William smiled brightly as he said jokingly. Upon seeing Jack's darkening handsome face, for some reason, the group got excited and decided to tease Jack even further. For today, the host would have the first dance before the others join in. So, Jack, better get ready to have the floor first. Right. By the way, the hotel was reserved. I'm sure that you can afford a presidential suite here. So, you can simply get her to a room in here. Hee hee, Jack, I can help you get engaged in this banquet. What engagement? They should get married straight away. What woman can resist Jack's charm? Jack felt that he should just get onto his feet and give these guys a few punches on their heads so that they can start thinking well. He was just about to speak when the MC spoke. Well, then, you guys should be ready as today's host. No. The hostess of the banquet today will be on stage in 5 minutes. Not more than that by a second. Upon hearing these words, people in the hall began moving. Jack and the others went back to their position. They immediately set aside the matter about Jack's partner and began thinking about the hostess. They wanted to see her in person. A beauty, a rich beauty, a woman with a business mind. That was a good lady, a good wife that could help the family rise instead of falling. As soon as they got to their seats, Ben came once again. This time, he sat on a chair that was on Jack's right. On Jack's left, there was Anderson. Obviously, he was here to look for trouble with Jack. When he heard the praises that Jack had received from the others, he wanted to find a way that could suppress him. But of course, he wouldn't go straight to the point. Instead, he decided to start from another angle. Hey Jack, who's your dancing partner tonight? Jack was now getting sick of this. Why was everyone so obsessed with the dance? Wasn't it just a dance? But all the same, he still replied honestly, I don't have a partner for tonight. Ben looked at him as he thought that he was joking, but upon seeing Jack's serious face, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Then, he couldn't help but chuckle. Are you serious? You came here today without a dancing partner? Are you going to play a third wheel? Ben said with disdain. Jack didn't reply. After all, what could he say about this? Upon seeing that Jack wasn't speaking, he said, You are a man. The whole of you. You can't even hook up with a girl? How bad that is. I thought that you were so cool in that you could get a beautiful girl. A beauty that surpasses mine. William and the others frowned when they heard this. Kelly spoke up, Young Master Ben, what has Jack's personal life got to do with you? Hee hee, not that much. I just wanted to know more about my rival in racing tonight. Turns out that he's nothing special. Just a person that hangs out with a group that are as him. True, birds of the same feathers flock together, Ben replied. Young Master Ben, are you insulting us? Ismael, the short-tempered guy asked with a darkened expression on his face. The others also didn't look good. On the other hand, Jack didn't say much but he wasn't impressed at all. This guy seemed to be one that was used to getting things done his way. Only that, his target tonight was wrong. So, he frowned as he spoke, Young Master Ben or whoever you're. I agreed to have a race with you but I don't remember saying that you're allowed to speak about my personal life. So, as long as it doesn't concern you, you better stay out of it. Jack was used to being angered back in Alfonso Mansion. He had handled himself well. Thus, his voice was calm, not showing a trace of anger at all. But, the look in his eyes was enough to say that he didn't like how things were. Ben and the others were stunned for a moment. Then, Ben laughed disdainfully and said, So what, is there anything that you can do to me? As for your personal life, I'm not interested. It's just that, my partner tonight is the hostess. In other words, it's like I'm the host of the event. In my banquet, I don't want some stray dogs. Ben's words immediately made the crowd agitated. Previously, he had clearly stated that Jack and William and the others were the same, birds of the same feathers. Now that he was referring to Jack as a stray dog, it was obvious that he was insulting the whole group as a group or stray dogs. Anderson and the others were from the prestigious Big Five families of Incoed City. When they were fooling around, they would usually gain the respect of their peers. Even George, who was from the Dante family, the family that was far bigger than the Tawal family, never treated them the way that Ben doing right now. As for his words that his partner for tonight was the hostess was ignored by the group the moment that he stated that Jack was a stray dog. Although Jack's tolerance was high, there was always a limit to how much he could endure. Even back at the Alfonso mansion, his half-siblings knew their own limit. They knew Jack's character very well as he had been in the Alfonso mansion since his childhood. He was the youngest of them all and as a result, they had seen him growing up, so, Although they were against him, they never did something that could make Jack angry in an open manner. They would usually do this in secret and then wait for Jack to speculate who was the one behind it. At the end of the day, as long as Jack had no evidence that they were the culprits, there was no way that he could name them. But now, there was someone who had straight to his face, said that he was a stray dog. And this made him angry. He could accept being teased, but he could not accept a direct insult. The temperature around him dropped drastically. Those around couldn't help but shiver the moment that they noticed that Jack's mood wasn't that good. Even Ben felt a chill running down his spine the moment that he noticed that Jack wasn't looking good. He didn't know the reason as to why he was scared by Jack's angry expression, but this was the fear that he experienced without knowing the reason. As a young master of Blue City, he had obviously seen many angry faces. But this time, it was the first time seeing an expressionless face, but cold eyes. After regaining his composure, he was just about to speak when a commotion rose among the crowd. Everyone in the group immediately shifted their attention towards the stage. The MC was already there, as there are only a few seconds to the 5 minutes timeline that he had given. Now, let us welcome the host of today's banquet, Mrs. Faith. As soon as these words flew out of the MC's mouth, the door behind the stage was opened and a very familiar lady to Jack stepped onto the stage. Jack could still remember this lady because she was there the 2 times that he had seen the lady who he thought that they shared some kind of link or fate. She was always by her side apart from today when he saw her alone by the door. As for the type of relationship that they shared, Jack was not sure about it now. Previously she had called that girl, Madam. But now, she was hosting an event in her presence. Jack could not understand at all. Humph. Whom do they think they can cheat? She's not the host at all. Please adjust the hostess's assistant. At this time, Ben's grumpy voice was heard. Upon hearing his words, Jack could already guess who the hostess was. It had to be her. From Faith's attitude towards that girl, Jack could tell that she was in a lower position. And she seemed not to be hosting the event. As he looked at her, Jack could see that Faith was quite a beauty. In rating, she could be a 90 rated beauty. But this was not obviously the exaggerated beauty that Anderson had mentioned before. As if sensing Jack's questioned gaze, Anderson simply shrugged his shoulders. He had never seen the lady before. So, how could he know who was who? It was also at this time that Jack noticed something among the big wigs attending. Their faces had frowns. It was obvious that they weren't expecting this at all. That told Jack immediately that the hostess had changed and wasn't going to show up. But for some reason, Jack felt his heart tighten and anger filled him the moment that he thought about Ben saying that his partner was the hostess. If Faith was the assistant, it implied that the girl, the one that Jack had met thrice, was the one that Ben was talking about. Faith's words immediately made Jack control his anger at this moment. Thank you all for coming to today's banquet. I know that most of you know that I'm not the host of the event, but just a stand-in. The young miss was having an emergency for a moment and would be here for the first dance, so you would be able to see her. The moment that Faith said the words "the first dance," the crowd began clamoring. They wondered who was going to be her partner this time. Ben was already smug after hearing that the young miss would be coming for the first dance. Previously, he had used his connections to meet up with her. When he heard that she was going to hold a banquet on this day, he had asked for the first dance. In the end, she didn't give him a positive reply. She had obviously refused the request. Even the moment that he was talking about her being his partner, that was all bluff. He wanted to use this to suppress Jack. In the end, who knew that the moment she noticed my presence in the hall, she immediately agreed to it. Tisk tisk. It seems that I'm still as charming as ever, Ben thought to himself. On the other hand, Jack couldn't understand his feelings at all. He had only met her 3 times. Neither of the times had they spoken a word to the other. But why was he getting angered the moment that he heard that Ben, such a playboy, was going to have a first dance with her? He took a deep breath and calmed himself. He was afraid that he would end up strangling Ben to death. After all, this guy had already made him angry before, and now, he was getting angry for the reasons that he didn't know. But this was a world where the law ruled. If he dared to go physical on Ben with so many witnesses around, it was obvious that he would end up in court. This banquet wasn't prepared for my young miss, as the most of you know, but it's to open a company here in Inchoate City. This company wants to join the Inchoate City economy and community. So, this banquet is being held in regards to that. But I won't speak that much. I'll let the banquet continue. After the dance, I'm sure that we can finally talk about business. Thank you. With that, Faith left the stage under the applause of the crowd. As soon as she disappeared, music rang in the hall. The lights in the entire hall immediately dimmed down as just above the dance floor, starlights lit up. The floor of the dance floor also lit up pale blue. The light was quite dim. In the entire hall, the multicolored starlight that came from the ceiling of the hall, directly landing on the dance floor, was breathtaking. The music that was ringing currently was a slow one. It was one that wouldn't need people to put in much effort when dancing. It was chosen due to those with old age. As for the younger generation, this was a romantic music, time to enjoy their time with their specific partners on the dance floor. The hostess was going to get onto the dance floor after this song reached the end. As the song went on, this was the time given to the attendees to prepare themselves for the dance. At the table that Jack was seated with the others, the atmosphere wasn't looking that good. William and the others could feel it. Even their own moods weren't good at all. After all, they had just joked about matching Jack with the hostess. In the next moment, it was said that she was going to dance with another person. Had it been someone else, they could at least accept it. But it was Ben, the scumbag, the one that was their enemy. Extremely arrogant and disdainful. A playboy and a troublemaker. They couldn't believe that this was happening just after he'd made them angry. But at the same time, they thought of something that made them somehow relax. This person had obviously made Jack angry. Who was Jack? He was previously a member of Alfonso family. One that even Steve and Brenda couldn't handle hurriedly. What did this mean? It meant that Jack wasn't someone simple. Now, Ben had offended him and had already made him angry. It was obvious that there would be consequences for his actions. As myriad of thoughts ran through their minds, a figure walked from the door behind the stage as she headed towards the dance floor. The curvaceous figure made some people swallow hard. Since the lights in the hall were dimmed, they couldn't see the figure's face. But they could already guess the extent of her beauty depending on her figure, her enchanting movements and confident steps. The crowd was forced to shut their mouths as they watched her approaching the dance floor. When she got onto the dance floor, from time to time, as some starlights landed on her face, they could already see the beautiful face. According to the traditions in the country, the person that was hosting an event, no matter if it was a man or a woman, they would be the ones to invite their partners if there was a first dance that was required. Now, as the music ended, everyone apart from the ones in Jack's group, waited excitedly for the hostess to mention who the partner was.